Welcome back, my friends. It's Morah Marisol covering this week's Parsha. But before I get started, we need to look for our calendars to see what the Omer count is. Can you go get your calendar? I already have two of mine. First is this calendar. Tonight begins night 29, the 29th day of the count. But I also have our other little calendar that I've been following with my friends. And there's this one, this count. As you can see with the different colors, it tells us how many weeks have gone by. We have 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and 4 weeks. And tonight begins the 5th week of the count. So we have gone through 4 weeks and 1 day, 29 days. It's going by so fast. Now we're going to review the Hebrew letters. So why don't you pause your video and grab your Hebrew letters. So this week's Parsha, it's called Emor. And the way we spell it is like this. Aleph, Mem, and Resh. Emor. Now, Emor means to say or to speak. And the reason why that's the name of the Parsha is because at this point of the Parsha, or of the Torah, God tells Moses to tell or to say to the priests, these are your responsibilities. These are my expectations of you. So Moshe describes all of the responsibilities that the priests are supposed to do, and there are a lot of responsibilities. But the priests, whom I have here, come from the tribe of Levi. They're called the Levitical priesthood. I don't know if you've ever wondered, but sometimes I wonder, why Levi? Why not one of the other tribes? Well, the reason they were chosen is because they stood up when no one else would. And they stood up to do the right thing, what God required of his people to do. And they were the only ones that did it. And because they did that, which showed a lot of courage, God chose them to be his priests, because he saw that within their hearts they would do what is right, and that's what he needed from his priests. A group of people who would do what is right and who can instruct other people to do the right thing. Now, we have 3 tiers of the priesthood. The first tier is Aaron, or the descendants of Aaron. He is the Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol means the high priest. Underneath him are his sons. I only have one representative of his sons. And in this tier, the second tier, are the Kohen. And the Kohen are responsible for the sacrifices, such as in here. They're responsible for lighting the menorah, for changing the showbread, which is done once a week, the altar of incense. But here in the Holy of Holies, the only one that could go in was the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. And he only went into this most holy place once a year. And do you remember when that is? It's in the fall. It's called Yom Kippur. That's when he would go in. The third tier of priests are the Levites. Any qualified Levi male was responsible to help with all of the upkeep of the tabernacle, or later on in the future, the temple. They would get the buckets of water. They would clean the utensils. They would make any repairs that needed to be made. That was their job. It's still a very important job, but it was different. Everyone had a specific duty, as you can see. The high priest's duty, of course, is very big, because not only is he responsible for himself, he's responsible for all of the people. And he's responsible in checking in on the Cohens and the other Levite males to make sure that everyone is doing their job correctly. So it's a big responsibility, really big. But not only did he have the responsibility for over them and to be their spiritual leader, he also had to be demonstrate what a good leader is. Now, one of the aspects of a spiritual leader is they have to know all of God's rules, right? Because since they are leading the people with anything that has to do spiritually, which means things that you read in the Torah, all of the mitzvot, that is what he provided spiritual guidance on. And one of the things that Moshe instructed the priests is that they needed to know all about the holy days, every holy day, and what it was required of each holy day. Now, we are counting the Omer towards Shavuot, so that's one of the holy days coming up. The next holy days start in the fall. We have Yom Teruah, which is also called Rosh Hashanah. We have Yom Kippur, and we have Sukkot. And we just went over Pesach and the days of unleavened bread. We just finished that holy day about a month ago. And we have our weekly holy day, Shabbat. So the priests are very busy. They were very busy at that time with the people and all of the holy days and all of the requirements for it. But what does it mean to be a leader? That's what we're going to focus on today, what it means to be a leader. Well, we already know that a spiritual leader has the responsibility to tell the people about God's laws. And he is also, or they were also required to behave respectfully to God and to others. They had to have good listening skills, right? Because if they weren't listening to what God wanted them to do, then they couldn't do it. So it's important. They had to follow directions. So whatever God told them to do, they needed to follow it respectfully. They needed to stand up for what's right, even when it was hard and it was a lonely thing to do. They had to be honest. So that means that whatever they said or whatever they did was true. And they had to be a good example. So whenever any of the Israelites would see any of the Cohen or the Levites, they would see what a principled, or rather what they were supposed to be like, what they were supposed to aspire to. Being a leader is a very important job. And leaders are basically people who are in charge, someone that others look up to. Now, we talked about the spiritual leaders, but do you know that they're leaders in different places? Such as when you go to school, the leader in school is your teacher. And there's also tiers there. There's the teacher, and then there's the principal. The principal is the leader of the teachers. At home, your Ima and Abba, or Daddy and Mommy, they're your leaders. Can you think of ways you can be a good leader yourself? Even though you're a child, you can still be a good leader. Let's think. Some of the points that I made about the leaders, the Levitical priesthood. I said, let's see, you can be a good listener, right? That is one way of being a good leader. You can follow directions. That's another one. Telling the truth is a really important one of being a good leader. And you can do the right thing even when no one else wants to, and you are the only person that's doing it. That takes a lot of courage, and that's a good leader. Whatever you do, though, make sure you do it to the best of your ability, because that's the beginning of good leadership. Well, that's all, my friends. Until next week, Shabbat Shalom.